Friday, the 28th of July. Welcome everyone to your business morning, live here on Channels Television, Nigeria's news leader. I am Bosin Amofaye. It's a very great day. Let's get this started to wrap up the final trading day in the third week. And as soon as Monday gets started next week, we're coasting home to the end of the first month in third quarter. And we'll have quite a bit on our table for the coming week. We'll check through with the markets a bit later on, but let's go through with some of the stories making the headlines. We have a bit of economic headlines that will take us to next week, Monday and Tuesday MPC meetings. The chief economist at Vetiva Capital is joining us live now on Skype. Michael Famoroti, good morning and thanks for coming through on the program. The first story that's making the headlines, want to have your opinion on Nigeria Air. What's the economic and business case for this airline from your point of view?
Hi, good morning. Pleasure to be here. So the reality is that, in the last couple of decades, from what we've seen with the struggles of national carriers across the world, especially in Africa, from likes of South African Airways being the key story. The reality is that the push for a national carrier has more to do with sentimentality than economics. The hope is that because the plan is for this to really be a privately run enterprise, that it is only a national carrier in name. Because if the government does own just 5% and 95% is owned by private investors, and the government is able to stay out of management and not interfere politically, then by all intents and purposes, it's a privately run airline in urban name. In that case, then it would be subject to the same challenges that the other guys are facing in the sector, from infrastructure to taxation. We all may recall, I think Arik Air was one of the firms that struggled last year. So despite the, goodwill around the airline, the reality is that the space itself isn't particularly welcoming, and this new airline would need to try and navigate those choppy airways.
Do you think Nigeria has a compelling business case for a commercial national airline?
I don't think that generally globally there's a compelling business case for a national airline per se. We do see it working sometimes. My personal favorite is Singapore International Airlines. But generally what happens is it's maybe owned by the government, but in terms of management and governance structure, it's a private company. And the national carriers, yeah?
Michael, I just want to make this very quick. Look at the British Airways, for example. It's called British Airways, which flies the flag, the Union Jack, isn't it?
Yes.
Yeah, but if you look at the airline itself, and Heathrow Airline, that is not run by the British government.
Yes, so a lot of Western countries went through a host of privatizations of their transport sector in the 70s and 80s, and best practice is for your airline infrastructure, from the airports to the airlines, and even runways and terminals, to be privatized, right? So there is really no compelling business case for a government-owned carrier. Obviously, a national carrier may be slightly different in that it is more so a flagship carrier that is run by the private sector. And in that case, there's a clear tourism benefit if, the marketing is done well.
Okay, that seems pretty clear. A national airline, different from a commercial airline, with which the authorities or the sovereignty of Nigeria puts its logo and its name, but allows the management, the day-to-day investment, business, passenger, whatever decisions to be taken on a commercial and best practices case. Is that what you're saying?
Perhaps, yeah.
Okay. Okay, let's leave it there for some later date. It's still early days yet as to how serious the administration is to walk through end-to-end on this particular project. We have a very important week next week, but again, before that, we have the IMF staff report on Nigeria this week. Do you think there's anything here for us to take to the considerations for July 23-24 MPC meetings?
So not much. They raised the same issues really about growth being slightly weaker, concerns about debts as usual came up, concerns about the elections and inflation. So there's nothing really that the MPC doesn't know. And what they are likely going to be looking at on Monday is inflation for June to see the pressure on food prices, given what is happening in the Middle Belt region. And that's probably what they're going to focus on, as well as how the fiscal space has evolved since their last meeting.
We'll have a very more robust consideration next week, but what do you think we should be looking at for on Tuesday next week when these decisions are read out in the afternoon, and what happens beyond Tuesday next week, moving forward on the monetary policy side? Technically, this is the last MPC meeting before the full-blown electioneering period, as it were, the campaign, the soapbox, unveiling of parties, and who will run for whatever political parties are on the landscape. So this is the last meeting. Before that, we're not having another meeting sometime perhaps in September or thereabout. So this meeting is very crucial in terms of how everyone will take the monetary policy focus on board before we get into the fourth quarter.
Yeah, so I think the MPC has been pretty good at signaling their intentions. They have emphasized their worries about higher inflation come the end of the year, and based on that, they've basically said that, look, we aren't going to ease until we are sure that inflation is going to consistently trend down. Now, the question is, has that changed since May? And the answer is an emphatic no. So given that, what we expect is for them to hold policy rates and for that to actually persist going into 2019.
Okay, thank you very much, Michael Famoroti. Do have a great weekend and see you at the other side. Most likely we'll be talking, we'll be together again on Tuesday for the MPC considerations and some analysis. Thank you very much from Vertiva Capital Management and the rest of your team.